Hey guys, so I'm here today to talk about my top 10 books of 2013. Last year I set myself a goal of reading a total of 60 books over the course of the year, and I actually reached that goal and then surpassed it by reading 65. So these are the top 10 books that I read over the past year that really stood out to me and made an impact on my life, and I just thought I'd share them with you today. So I'm going in no particular order because there's no way I could rank them, so let's just get started. First I'll start with one that I think a lot of people have heard about, and that's Middlesex by Eugenides. This is the first book I've read by Eugenides, but I do have The Virgin Suicides and The Marriage Plot on my to-be-read list as well. This was a really fascinating story because I actually had no idea what it was about until I started reading it. It was just a really nice, honest story that covers a topic I think a lot of people don't talk about or even know a whole lot about. It's about the story of an intersex man and his life, how he found out he was intersex, how he transitioned from being raised as a girl to being a man, and the family history that led up to his life as well as his parents' lives and his grandparents' lives, and how they all intersect with each other, and it was just really an interesting story. Then I have another story about a family called Fun Home by Alison Bechdel. This is a graphic novel and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't read a whole lot of graphic novels, but it's basically the story of Alison Bechdel's father and growing up with her father as reminiscing from after his death. I thought it was a really fascinating investigation of a relationship between a daughter and her father, told from the daughter's perspective. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and I'd like to read it again probably because it was just a really interesting read that I definitely recommend if you're really into graphic novels or if you've never read one before. I think it translates really nicely. Keeping on the theme of families, this year I read 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, which I absolutely adored. It was a standout novel this past year, following a family growing up in a small town that they founded in South America. It goes over literally 100 years of this family's generations, and it's particularly interesting because almost every male character has exactly the same name, so it becomes pretty difficult telling them all apart, but luckily Gabriel included a family tree in the front of the book, which made it a lot easier. What's truly fascinating about this story is that it covers 100 years really easily. Usually writers tell you to stay away from either covering too short a period of time or too long a period of time because a lot of detail and a lot of interest can be lost, but Gabriel Garcia Marquez is just such a beautiful author that he does it wonderfully, and you never get bored. It's just a constant investigation of this family, which I thoroughly enjoyed from start to finish. Changing tact a little bit, I have The Golden Notebook by Doris. I picked this up a few years ago on a complete and total whim. I had no idea who she was or what this book was about, but after purchasing this, I found out that Doris Lessing is actually a fantastic feminist, communist, and social commentator. Unfortunately, she did pass away in 2013, which kind of spurred me on to pick this up. This follows the life of a woman named Anna through 4 different notebooks that she keeps, as well as a story about her. It was just really fascinating reading a story that was so divided up between different subjects and different time periods throughout this woman's life, all jumbled together until at the end you get a really holistic picture of who she was and the time period that she was living in. Another beautiful story about a time period was On Chesil Beach by McEwan. This is set on the honeymoon night of the 2 main characters as they begin their life together, and the confinement they find in their age and in their time period where they can't really communicate with each other properly, and it ends up really poorly for both of them. It's a classic McEwan story about something that's gone wrong that changed the course of everybody's lives, and then at the end a little bit of reminiscing about how big of an impact that had on them. I really loved this because the 2 characters were very raw, very honest, and very realistic, and I believed that this did happen to the 2 of them and that it did have this impact on them. It's classic McEwan sadness and nostalgia, so if you're into that kind of thing, maybe you'll really enjoy this novella. This is a book I've talked about a few times on this channel, I think, but it's The God of Small Things by Arundhati. I read this for class and absolutely fell in love with it. It's about a set of Indian twins growing up in small town India in a time period when Anglophilia was rife in that country. It's a beautiful examination of relationships and understanding, and particularly the class system in India, where there's a massive divide between touchables and untouchables. The story touches your heart and it will probably make you cry because it's just a beautifully told story about some horrendous momentous events. I really connected to these characters as I am a twin myself, but I don't think you have to be to enjoy this story. I recommend this so much. I have multiple times on this channel, and I really enjoyed reading it this year. Another heart-wrencher that I finally picked up this past year was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I am sure you've heard about this. It is an absolute favorite here on YouTube, and I finally picked it up after hearing so many people talking about it. Now, before reading this, I had read 3 of John Green's books, including Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, and Will Grayson, and I must say, out of the 4 I've read, I think The Fault in Our Stars is probably his best work. Not only is it really sad and really touching between these 2 characters interacting, getting to know each other and falling in love and teenage love, and it's just adorable. The story is actually hilarious. There are a number of times when I was laughing out loud, and I think that's a really fantastic skill to have as an author, which I highly admire. Then I have a rather confrontational book. This is The Man Who Loved Children by Christina Stead. Again, I had to read this for class last semester, and it was rather dividing amongst my classmates. Some people loved it, most people hated it. It's an over 500-page epic about the Pollitt family, particularly Sam and Lou Pollitt. They are an absolutely ridiculous family with a lot not going very well for them, but I thoroughly enjoyed it because it is written so beautifully. It says on the back here that it's lyrical in the true sense, and I think there's no better description of it. The way the time periods flow together and the ideas and the events just flow all from beginning to end in no sort of time period at all. It's just really hard to explain because there's nothing like it, but it was truly beautiful and I loved reading it in 2013. I also read a number of plays over the last year, including one that I adored called Doubt, which is now a movie starring Meryl Streep, I do believe. It follows the story of a group of nuns and their priest, and the priest is new and highly disliked by the nuns. Essentially, the play is about doubt, accusation, and the church, which for some people can be rather confronting and a little bit controversial, but I just thoroughly enjoyed this investigation of human nature and human politics. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. It's like less than 50 pages. I highly recommend it if you only have like an hour or so to read it. Last but not least, I have a book that I really wanted to read for a very long time before I finally got it on sale for $5 this past year. Such a deal. And that is On Beauty by Zadie Smith. This follows the lives of the Belzy family growing up in America and having a brief stint over in England. All of the characters are so beautiful, realistic, and just heartwarming. They all have such lovable personalities and they really come to life on these pages. It's a really interesting story about family, about academia, and about race in America, which I thought was a really interesting topic, but again, some people might find a little bit confrontational. The hurt in this family is real and it absolutely sucks you in from the very beginning. I thoroughly enjoyed reading this one and I think Zadie Smith is one I'm going to have to look out for in the future. So there you go, those are the top 10 books that I read over 2013. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these and what you thought of them when you read them. Or let me know what books you loved over 2013. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye!